Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Atta have jitaṃ seyo yācāyaṃ itara paja atta dantasya posasya niccāṃ sacārino neva devo na gandhabbo na māro saha brahmana jitaṃ apajitaṃ kairā tatā rūpasya jantuno. Self-conquest is indeed far better than other conquest of all others. Neither a god, nor an angel, nor a Brahma or a Mara can win back that victory of such a person who is self-restrained in conduct. Friends, this is how the Buddha talked about self, atta, in the Dhammapada. Dhammapada means verses of Dhamma. You know, there is a book called Dhammapada, in which we find 423 different verses of the Buddha. And there are 26 different chapters. Of this, there is one particular chapter which is called Atta, the self. Self is the name of the chapter. Atta in Pali. So even in this chapter, either in this chapter, this particular chapter, or in the book, or in the whole teaching of the Buddha, we do not see even an iota of idea that there is something permanent, something everlasting, something eternal in the world to be grasped as a soul or self. No such thing. That is why the Buddha taught us the characteristics of non-self. We talk about non-self, no self or not self. So, in line with this, for this Dhamma talk, our topic is non-self, Anatta. Na atta, anatta means no atta. I know this topic is a bit difficult, and also most people don't like to talk about or even to listen to about this topic. Why? It is because our belief. We believe, many people believe, that there is something permanent which was emanated from the heaven. Therefore, it is true, people don't like to listen to this. But this is what as I have learned, as I have practiced the Dhamma, we can say what the Buddha has taught us. So, let's take this term, Anatta. Anatta means no atta. Either it is translated as non-self, no self, or not self. For us, for Buddhists, if we know the Dhamma, the real teaching of the Buddha, for us it's the same. You know the rose by any other name, smell as sweet. Just like the stench the same. Not only rose, stench the same. By any other name, it gives the same stench. Just like that. Whether it is stench or something sweet, the same. So, for us, when we talk about this Anatta, we go to the very word of the Buddha. The Buddha has taught us this in his very original discourses. Let's come to this later. Now, according to this teaching of the Buddha, we talk about Anatta. Anatta, this concept, let's take Atta first. Atta. Atta means self or soul. According to Abrahamic religions, people believe that there is something permanent, which is everlasting, which is permanent, everlasting, eternal, immortal thing. Everlasting. That is how it is said. Na jayate na mriyate va kadachit. No birth, no death for this self, soul. No birth, no death. According to the teaching of the Buddha, there is no such thing in the world. So, that is how we have to understand. The Buddha said, no such thing, but things are anatta. Buddha very clearly said, Sabbe sankhara anicca. All created things are impermanent. All conditioned things are impermanent. Sabbe sankhara dukkha. All conditioned things, all created things are dukkha, unsatisfactory. And then said, all conditioned things, all created things, all things are anatta. Sabbe Dhamma anatta. Anatta, no atta. Anatta means no atta. Just like akusala, Dhamma, anatta, no atta. Anatta. This is how the Buddha said. Once the Buddha addressing the monks said, monks, this form, rupam, rupa is form, rupam bhikkhave aniccham. Monks, this rupa, this form is anicca, anicca, no nicca. Anicca means not permanent. This form is impermanent. Then secondly said, whatever is in the nature of impermanence, impermanence means change in nature. Whatever is in the nature of change in impermanence, yad niccang tang dukkhang, that is dukkha. Whatever is changing, if things are changing, that is not happy. That is because you can't keep it as you want. If you can't keep things as you want, is it happy? Then it is dukkha. That's what is called suffering, unsatisfactory. You are not satisfied because you can't stay as you want. You can't keep your body as you want. You can't keep your things as you want. Things become old, decay and pass. So that's therefore unsatisfactory. So then the Buddha said, all things are anatta, no atta. In such a way, we have to understand the Buddha's word. Self is threefold. Self, when we talk about self, the term has three different aspects. First, self with S capital, big S, self, which represents soul. For Buddhists, those who know the Dhamma, those who know the Buddha's very word, for them, this is not a problem. This self is not a problem. S capital, big S, that self is not a problem for Buddhists who know the Buddha's very word. Because they don't believe that there is a permanent entity. Therefore, it is not a problem for Buddhists. Secondly, there's another word, self, which we use grammatically in our language in order to show the reflective pronouns. We use the word self. I myself should do that. You yourself should do that. Yourself, herself, himself, like that. We use the word self in language. That is in language wise, for which we do not cling to. We simply use language. The Buddha said, through language you cannot come to the conclusion, cannot come to truth. So, to attain enlightenment, you cannot use language. You have to stop language. So, that itself is not a problem for us, because it is language. The third one, we have tendency, all beings, all those who have not attained enlightenment, not enter the path, they all have the tendency to grasp these five aggregates, to cling to these five aggregates, thinking that this is mine, this is me, this is myself. That is the tendency. That is what is called self-identity. Self-identity. You identify, you personalize yourself. This is the problem. This is what is called self, which is the problem for all of us. We have to decentralize, depersonalize this personality. With that depersonalization, we can enter the path as a stream enterer. So friends, this is how we have to understand this term, self. Self, the Pali term for self is Atta. The Buddha has used this on different occasions. After his attainment of enlightenment, he sat under the same tree, same position. He sort of enjoyed his bliss of enlightenment, that is, being sensitive to this bliss. He spent 7 days on the same position. And at the end, he surveyed the world. He wanted to see the beings. Then he said, Ayang loko santapajatu. This world is born of unsatisfactory. This world means these beings. Beings are unsatiate, in other words. Not happy. They are unsatisfied. Beings are unsatisfied. Ayang loko santapajatu. Phassa pareto. Phassa is contact. Phassa pareto. They are pressed by contact. It is through contact we grasp things. It is through contact we feel, and when we feel, we cling to. Either we cling to or we push things away because of our inclination, because of our contact. So, phassa pareto. Then these beings, rogang vadati attatu, these beings, rogang vadati attatu, roga means disease. The Buddha said these 5 aggregates are called disease. This is a tumor. The 5 aggregates means tumor. 5 aggregates means disease. 5 aggregates means dart, like that. Buddha gave these different words to these 5 aggregates. So Buddha said these 5 aggregates, this disease, they call atta, they call self for this disease. So this is a disease, though they say it is the self. It is atta. Rogam vadati attato. Atta, the term Buddha used in the Dhammapada. Buddha used this in one particular chapter called Atta, where the Buddha used it. Attanava katang papam attana sankilissati. Attana akatam papam attanava visujjati. Suddhi asuddhi pacchatang nanyo manyang visode. Attanava katam papam. Atta here means oneself. It is not oneself, but oneself. That we have to understand. Buddha always used this to represent, to understand oneself. It is oneself. Oneself is done evil. Evil done by oneself. Attanava katam papam attana sankilissati. Buddha said, one is defiled because of one's unwholesome deed. One is defiled because of one's unwholesome deed. Attanava katam papam attana sankilissati. Attana akatam papam attanava visujjati. One is purified once because one's undone unwholesome deeds. As if one is doing good deeds, one is purified. So, purity and impurity, the Buddha said, purity and impurity both depends on oneself. Oneself, not oneself, but oneself. I have to emphasize this. Otherwise, misunderstand. So it is not oneself, but oneself. So this is how the Buddha used. Another occasion. Buddha said, Atta Deepa Viharata. Atta Deepa Viharata. Atta, when you write it, A-T-T-A, Atta. Atta means self, oneself. Atta Deepa Viharata. One should live, one should make one's own island. Deepa means island. One should make one's own island. That is the meaning. Atta Deepa Viharata. Atta Sarana. One should go to one's own refuge. Atta Sarana. Ananya Sarana. Should not go to the refuge of others. In such a way, the Buddha taught how to make our own island. In order to make our own island, the Buddha said, practice, establish four establishments of mindfulness. 4 establishments of mindfulness. That is the way to make our own island. So, in this manner, the Buddha used the word atta. Again, there is another term, atta. Atta, it is A-T-T-H-A, atta. Atta means meaning. Kimatto Bhante. Bhante, what is the meaning? In Pali you can ask Kimatto Bhante. Bhante, what is the meaning? Kimatto, atto. In the 11th Friendliness Discourse, Karaniyang atta kusalena. Buddha said, Karaniyang atta kusalena. Where atta? That means Nibbana. Atta kusalena is the one who is skilled to attain enlightenment. Atta here means Nibbana. Another occasion, the Buddha said, Attha gatasya na pamanamatti. The one who entered the realm, entered the bliss, experienced the bliss of Nibbana, has no measure, is measureless, immeasurable. Attang gatasya na pamanamatti. Like that, we have to understand different meaning as well. Now, this term, atta, has been distorted, misinterpreted, mistranslated by some scholars. In the Dhammapada, as the Buddha used the term to denote oneself, some scholars have twisted this word, have translated, have given the wrong meaning. Atta here means self, soul. When the Buddha said Attahi Attano Natu, Attahi Attano Natu, one is one's own protector. One is one's own protector. That is the meaning. But they translated this as one's self is one's protector. One's self, one's soul is one's protector. That is how they translated this. In such a way, they have translated, they have mistranslated, misinterpreted this term. That also we have to understand. The Buddha once pointed out there are 4 types of clinging. 4 types of clinging. Kamupadana, Ditti Upadana, Silabbata Upadana, Attavada Upadana. Upadana means clinging. Upa means closer. Adana means you grasp, you bring things closer, means you cling to things. Upadana. Kama Upadana. The first one is called Kama. Kama means pleasures, sensual pleasures. We cling to sensual pleasures. That is one type of clinging. These are 4 types of clinging. First one is clinging to sensual pleasures. Kama Upadana. Second one is Ditti Upadana. Clinging to views. We cling to different views. We think certain views and then we cling and we think that, oh, this is what is right. All others false. Like that. Clinging to view. Second one. Third, Silabbata. Silabbata Upadana means clinging to rules and rituals. That itself is a clinging. Then the fourth one is Attavada Upadana. You see Atta here. Atta means clinging to self. Clinging to self. Once we cling to self, what happens? What will happen? What Upadana brings us? What clinging brings us? Upadana Pacha Bhava. It brings us existence. Bhava, become. We become again. We are born again. We get another opportunity to reap the results. That is what is called Bhava. Upadana Pacha Bhava. We are born again because of clinging. Clinging to where? We cling to some place. We cling to heaven. We cling to human being, human realm. We cling to the ghost realm. Like that. We cling to somewhere. Then we are born there. Upadana Pacha Bhava. Then what happened? Bhava Pacha Jati. It is because of existence we come to be born there. Bhava Pacha Jati. Jati Pacha Jara Marana. It is because of birth, then we experience decay and death. And also sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and the whole mass of suffering. It is because of clinging. So, especially this clinging to self, as I said earlier, clinging to self is the most dangerous thing. Is the most dangerous thing. Now, this is how the Buddha explained these 4 types of clinging. In the time of the Buddha, people, some thinkers, some philosophers, they formulated 10 different types, 10 different questions, which are very difficult to answer. They formulated these 10 and came to the Buddha and asked these questions. They asked the questions whether the Buddha, they asked from the Buddha, whether the world is eternal. Is the world eternal? Was the question. Then Buddha did not answer. Buddha kept silent. They asked whether the world is not eternal. That was the second question. Buddha kept silent. Whether the world is finite, kept silent. Whether the world is infinite, kept silent. Then they asked whether the soul and body the same. Here, soul and body, atta, jiva, the word they use there is jiva. Tan jivang, tan sarirang. Whether the soul and body the same, identical. Whether both are identical. Buddha kept silent. Whether they are different, whether the soul and body are two different things. Again kept silent. And further they asked further 4 questions referring to the enlightened ones, Tathagata, the Arahant. Whether the enlightened ones will be born, whether the enlightened one exists after his death. Do not exist. Whether exist or do not exist, the Arahants do not exist. Or whether neither they exist nor non-exist. Like that, they asked these 10 questions. Of the 10, what I wanted to point out here is, of the 10, there are 2 particular questions referring to this soul or self. So, they formulated these questions to ask, but Buddha kept silent. Why? Buddha said, why? These are irrelevant. If things are irrelevant, not relevant, not pertaining to the purpose, what is the use of answering these questions? There are many things in books. If they are not relevant to our purpose, what is the use of reading such books? There are many different methods to practice, many teachings. If they are not relevant to our purpose, what is the purpose? Purpose is removing this desire, removing defilement, removing our craving, anger, jealousy, lust, craving, all these things. If we cannot remove these, if we cannot cut off this, what is the use of practicing different methods? Like that, Buddha kept silent because they are irrelevant for the purpose. For the purpose of disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, peace, true knowledge, enlightenment and Nibbana. For these are irrelevant. Therefore, Buddha kept silent. So the Buddha taught us to understand Dhamma properly. In order to understand the Dhamma properly, Buddha said that there is no permanent entity, no permanent everlasting thing to be grasped as a permanent thing. No permanent thing. This is the definition. This is the Buddhist definition. No permanent entity. Those who talk about self, their definition is it is everlasting, unchanging, permanent, eternal thing, no birth, no death. So the Buddhist see everything is changing, not only Buddhist. Now the scientists, they talk about physics. You know better what scientists talk about. Physics, special quantum physics. What they talk. Everything is changing. Have they ever found a little thing, an iota of thing which is not changing? If we find this one day, that is what is called soul. But the Buddha said, once Buddha got some cow dung, a lump of cow dung, little cow dung, dried cow dung to his hand. Showing that, the Buddha said, monks, even this much, no permanent entity, permanent thing in the world. Another occasion like this, got some soil on his nail. Showing that, said, monks, even this much thing, no permanent thing in the world. That is the Buddha's teaching. These are given in the discourses. So in such a way, the Buddha said, try to understand this. From where should we understand this? Can we simply observe outside the world and understand these things? No. It is not external, but internal first. Internal first. You have to understand this within. That is why we want to observe ourselves. That is why we want to see these 5 aggregates, the nature of these composed things. 5 aggregates. How to see these 5 aggregates? The Buddha said, Pena pindupamang rupang. Try to see this rupa, this form, as a form, lump of form. See this form as a form. Form means F-O-A-M form. Lump of form, no core, no substance within. Try to see in this body there's nothing, substance, just like form. That is how we have to see this form. Pena pindupamang rupang. Vedana, the second one is feeling. How to see feelings? The Buddha said, Vedana bubbulupama. Try to see this feeling, whatever feeling, as a bubble, which comes, bubble, like a bubble. It's boosting, coming up, gone, finished. Your pain is not lasting longer. It's always changing. It's always changing. Just like a bubble. Vedana bubbulupama. Then marichi kupama sanya. Sanya means perception. Perception is to be seen as mirage. Mirage. Just like when you see there distance, you see like water. Especially the deer. They are expert to see this mirage. They see water like. Then they start to run to drink water. But they run, no water, nothing. That's mirage. Just that is what is your perception. You pursue things, you see things. But not reality, not reality. What you see is not what is real. That's the meaning. Marichikupama sanya. Then sankha kadalupama. Sankhara means volitional formations. Formations are, the Buddha said, like the banana trunk. Banana trunk. Perhaps you might have not seen banana trunks. Banana tree has no core. That is the meaning. Layers and layers you remove. Eventually you don't find anything core, no hardwood there. That is the meaning. Just like onion, take the onion and you remove one by one, peel off. Just like onion, you peel off. But eventually you don't find anything core inside, just like that. And then consciousness is a magician. They said consciousness is the magicians. How many magicians we have? 6. 1 at the eye. In the eye, 1. Ear, 1. nose, one, tongue, and body and mind, 6 senses. Of the 6, there are 6 types of consciousness, which are called eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. It doesn't mean that we have 6 different consciousnesses. Not 6 different consciousness. Consciousness, when it is connected to these places, the name is given. That is how it happens. Okay, friends, now let's understand further, according to the teaching of the Buddha, how the Buddha talked about non-self. One day, Venerable Radha, he went to the Buddha, and after respecting the Buddha, he sat aside and said, Bhante, this non-self is said. Because people talk different ways like no self, non-self or not self. Non-self is said, Bhante. Bhante, what is non-self? He asked. Then the Buddha said, rather, this rupa, form is not self. You see, Buddha did not want to say that the particular things outside there. That tree is not self, that rock is not self, like that. Because it is all these are outside. If you understand inside, you can understand outside as well. That is why we want to understand inside first. So the Buddha said, this form, rupam anicca. Rather, this form is anicca, impermanent. Whatever is in the nature of impermanence, the Buddha said, whatever is in the nature of impermanence, it is in the nature of unsatisfactory and without a self. Further, the Buddha said, rather, this form is impermanent. If it is permanent, if it is unsatisfactory, it is without a self, no self. Rupa is not self. Rupa is not self. If it were self, this is the Buddha's argument. If it were self, if the form is self, this form would not be prone to affliction. That means, if the form is self, we should be able to say that my form should not be thus. My form be thus, like that. Or the form should not be liable to affliction. That is the meaning. Not only form, the Buddha said, feeling is not self. Perception is not self. Then volitional formations are not self. Consciousness is not self. All these 5 aggregates are not self. All these 5 aggregates are impermanent, unsatisfactoriness, and without the self, no self. That is the teaching. As you all know, the Buddha delivered his first sermon on the full moon day of July. As he attained enlightenment on the full moon day of May, he delivered his first sermon, maiden discourse, on the full moon day of July to 5 disciples. At the end of the discourse, only one disciple of the five, the most senior, named Kondanya, he entered the path as a stream enterer. He understood whatever is in the nature of changing, it is in the nature of unsatisfactory. Whatever is in the nature of arising, it is in the nature of perishing. That is how he understood it. Whatever is in the nature of arising, it is in the nature of perishing. That means whatever comes to be, it should come to pass. That is the meaning, changing. He understood this change in nature. With that, he realized the Dhamma. That is called Dhamma eye. He got this eye, special eye, like third eye. It is not called third eye. This is not in Buddhism. Third eye is not in Buddhism. This is something different. So, however, this is a special eye. That eye is called Dhamma eye. Dhamma chakku. He got this special eye to see things as they really are. When you see things as they really are, what can you see? You can see the object is changing, impermanent. You can see the nature of impermanence. Then you can see the nature of unsatisfactoriness. And you can see that there is no core, no permanent thing. Everything is changing. No unchanging entity, no unchanging little thing. Since everything is changing, you see that there is no thing to be grasped as a soul or self. Through which you can understand the three characteristics of existence. That is the existence. That is what is called three characteristics of existence. If one can see these three characteristics, one's wisdom is developed. Vipassana is developed. That is the meaning. So, when the Buddha delivered this first sermon, he realized this Dhamma and he entered the path as a stream enterer. Others could not understand this Dhamma. Why? They were Brahmins. Brahmins, normally they believe the Creator. This Creator concept, even before the Buddha, people believed that the world was created by Brahma. So they believe Brahma the Creator. They believed that we all were created by Brahma and the soul was sent from the Brahma. It is the soul through which one day we will be unified with the same Creator. So they believe this. That means they had this concept of Atma, Atman. In Sanskrit, Sanskrit term is Atman. Pali term is Atta. Sanskrit term is Atman. Now, as they believed Atma, the self theory, they had self theory. They believed a permanent entity to be called self. So they couldn't understand. They thought that there is something permanent. As long as you grasp this little permanent thing, you are trapped. You are clinging. You are attached to that. No release. No relief. That's the problem. So now, as the Buddha understood that they could not understand this Dhamma, the Buddha had to deliver another discourse. Right after the first one, he delivered the second discourse as the characteristics of non-self, Anatta. Characteristics of non-self. This is a very important discourse. Everybody should read this. This is very important discourse to understand the Buddha's very word of Anatta. Here the Buddha, addressing the monks, said, "Monks, this form is not self. That is how he addressed. Observe these things. As the monks were contemplative, the Buddha said, observe this body and understand whether there is a self. Then Buddha said, this form is not self. He then said the same thing. If this form is self, this form would not be prone to affliction. And it should be possible to say that my form should be thus, or this form should not be thus. Like that. Then this feeling is not self, perception is not self, formations are not self, consciousness is not self. Buddha taught them to reflect on this, contemplate on this. They understood, they realized this. And then the Buddha said, this form, monks, this form is impermanent, unsatisfactory, without the self. Whatever is in the nature of impermanence, unsatisfactory, without a self, is not to be taken as mine. Not to be taken as mine, me or myself. Therefore, Buddha taught them to understand these 5 aggregates, not only these 5 here, but the aggregates, whatever form, feeling, perception, volitional formation, consciousness, in the past, future, present, past, future, 3 times. And then internal, you see, we see something, form, some forms inside, internal form, and then external form. Then gross type of form, gross form, then subtle form, then superior form, inferior form, far form, near form. These are the things. These are what is called time and space. All things exist within these 2, time and space. Time-wise, 3 times. Past, present and future. Then space-wise, internal, external, gross, subtle, superior, inferior, far, near. Whatever form, Buddha said, whatever form is not mine, not me, not myself, is impermanent, unsatisfactory, without a self. Then feeling, whatever feeling, whether past, present, future, internal, external, gross, subtle, inferior, superior, far, near, whatever feeling is impermanent, unsatisfactory, without a self. Not mine, not me, not myself. Likewise, all the 5 aggregates are to be seen in such a way with a proper wisdom. That is how the Buddha's instruction. To be seen with a proper wisdom. Proper wisdom means developed wisdom. That means, in other words, we have to develop our mind, develop our concentration. Then only we can see these things as they really are. In the nature of Dhamma, the discourse named Nature of Dhamma, Dhamma Niyamata, Buddha said, it is the nature, uppadava tatagatanang Anuppadava Tathagataram. Whether the Buddhas, the Tathagatas appear or do not appear in the world. Whether the Buddhas appear or do not appear in the world, Thitavasa Dhatu Dhamma Thitata, Dhamma Niyamata, it is the established, this established of Dhamma, this nature of Dhamma, Sabbe Sankhara Anicca. The nature of Dhamma is all conditioned things are anicca, impermanent. All conditioned things are unsatisfactory. All things, all Dhamma are without a self, non-self. These three, the Buddha said, these three exist in the world whether the Buddhas appear or do not appear in the world. In other words, this is not the invention of the Buddha. These three are not the invention. Simply the Buddhas rediscover this Dhamma. The Buddha's real Dhamma is the everlasting Dhamma. Take for instance the Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths are everlasting phenomena in the world. Dependent origination. These are the real Dhamma of the Buddha. They are everlasting. Whether the Buddhas appear or do not appear, the Dhamma is there in the world, though a bit shrouded with darkness of delusion, ignorance. People can't understand. The Dhamma is there, though people cannot understand. Only the Buddha understands this. Buddha reveals this. Tathagata abhisambhujjati abhisameti. The Buddha realizes this Dhamma and he understands this Dhamma, and thereafter he announces this Dhamma. He points out this Dhamma. He then establishes this Dhamma, expounds this Dhamma, explains this Dhamma. Eventually he clarifies this Dhamma. That is what is happening. So these three characteristics of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta, these three are to be seen in this manner. Some people take this mind as soul. Mind. They think it is the mind that our self means mind, is permanent. Mind is permanent. Though body is decaying, you leave behind the body and then you go somewhere to be born again. Therefore the mind is transmigrating, so it is the permanent thing. Buddha said in the connected discourses, Asutta Sutta. Buddha said, monks, these untaught ordinary persons, they grasp this mind as self. But it is better they take this body as self rather take in mind. Why? This body, you can see that it's lasting longer than your mind. You live, say, like several years, 10 years, 20 years, 50, 70, 80, 90, 100 years you live. Therefore, it is rather better you take this body as self, not the mind, because mind is so quick. It is the fastest energy in the world. Why it is called energy? It is fast, it is rapid. It is because of the rapidity it becomes the fastest energy. So it's so quick, you can't imagine even how fast is this. Therefore it is ever changing. We cannot take our mind as soul or self. In the time of the Buddha, there was a debater named Satchaka. He himself went to the Buddha to debate with the Buddha on this self, where Buddha very clearly taught him that since we cannot control these things, control the five aggregates as we want, we cannot take self, we cannot take this form as self, feeling as self, perception as self, volitional formations as self, consciousness as self. Eventually he had to accept. When the Buddha put question, when the Buddha asked him, Satyaga, how do you think? Is this form permanent or impermanent? To the question. He accepted and he said, Bhante, form is impermanent. Earlier he said, form is permanent. It's a form is the self. Form is myself. Feeling is myself. Like that. That is how he grasped it. Eventually he accepted that form is impermanent. Feeling is impermanent. Perception is impermanent. Volitional formations are impermanent. Consciousness is impermanent. He realized this thing. There's a very special discourse, which is again, everybody should read to understand Vipassana and this particular concept of Anatta. Buddha said, all Dhammas are Anatta. Dhamma means what? Buddha delivered a discourse named 6 sets of 6, in which the Buddha pointed out, monks, I am going to teach you the Dhamma, which is excellent in the beginning, excellent in the middle, excellent in the end, which is entirely perfect Dhamma, pure Dhamma. So the Buddha taught us 6 sets of 6. Where the Buddha said the 6 sets, let's understand the 6 sets. 6 internal bases, there are 6. 6 external bases, there are 6 again. 6 classes of consciousness, then 6 classes of contact, 6 classes of feeling, then 6 classes of craving. Those are the 6 sets. 6 sets of 6 means 36. 36 factors. It is because of these 36 factors we expose the world. These are connected to these 6 bases, internal bases. These are the 6 internal bases and they are concomitant factors. Buddha very clearly said in this discourse, monks, there is no permanent thing in these factors. These are called Dhamma. These factors are called Dhamma, in which you do not find self. Buddha question. Buddha says, monks, if one says this I is self, one might say this, it's my I is the self. Buddha said, if one says that I is self, I has the nature of arising and nature of perishing. It changes. I changes, you know. I changes. If the I is changing, if you say that your I is self, your self is changing. That is the argument. The definition given to self is that it is never change. It is entity, it is permanent, it is substance. It's a permanent thing. But if you say that your I is your self, which is wrong. Because it is changing. Then the Buddha said, suppose you might say, no, not the I, but the form. Form is self. Form is self. Buddha said, form is changing. If form is changing. If you say that the form is your self, the self is changing. Then I consciousness. If you say your I consciousness is self, as consciousness is changing, your self is changing. It is not tenable. It is not possible. The Buddha said it is not possible. Like that, in all these 36 places, Buddha pointed out, in all these 36 places, you cannot grasp, you cannot see anything permanent, anything to be grasped as yourself. Then he introduced how this personality belief, this self-identity, this identification, personalization arises. We grasp this eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and this form, feeling, perception, volitional formation and consciousness. We grasp this as mine, myself, mine, me and myself. We grasp this. We grasp this as permanent, happy and self. As long as we grasp this is what is called the rising or the origination of self. The Buddha pointed out the cessation of self. How to do that? It is possible. One has to start its opposite. One has to understand this I is not mine, not me, not myself. That is what we are doing. That is what I wanted you all to practice today. This I is not mine, not me, not myself. This I is impermanent, unsatisfactory, without a self. Then ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. Then there are concomitant factors, the form, sound, smell, taste, tangible object, then mental objects, and there are some others as well, like consciousness, feeling, craving. We have to give attention to these different factors and understand. It is true vipassana. Through vipassana, we have to give attention to these different factors and understand that there is no permanent thing to be grasped as a soul or self. With that, we come to the cessation of self. It is through this one can understand the real Dhamma. One can then understand with feeling that you do not let your underlying tendency to lust to arise, underlying tendency to hate arise. You do not let your underlying tendency to ignorance arise. With that you can come to the complete cessation of underlying tendencies, means very subtle form of defilement. That is the complete cessation of defilement, and with that you come to realize real peace, real happiness. That is what is called liberation. With liberation, you yourself can understand that it is liberated. What is liberated? Your mind is liberated. That is the liberation. That is the peaceful state, bliss that the Buddha taught us as Nibbana. Friends, let's understand this wonderful teaching of the Buddha. Let's understand the three characteristics. Let's try to understand these three characteristics in all things, even in our daily life. Let's try to break things mentally. Try to break things mentally and understand that things are not permanent, impermanent, unsatisfactory and without a self. without a core, no substance. In such a way, if we can apply this in our daily life, we can be happy, we can live peacefully, happily, and one day we can realize this real peace, real happiness of Nibbana. May we realize this wonderful Dhamma. May we attain supreme bliss of Nibbana. With that good thought, say sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.